Gestures are a really important part of language, but how do we use them and why? Linguistics isn't just the study of words or sounds, it's the study of all the parts of conversation. That includes gesture analysis, which looks at co-speech gestures, not posture or gaze, but winking or sticking out your tongue or how your arms and hands move alongside speech. Just to be clear, this isn't about sign languages. Those are systematic and rule-governed with elaborate syntax and vocabulary. Signed languages are language, but gestures are paralinguistic. They accompany language. Gesture analysts make their job easier by talking about different categories of gestures, which explain how they relate to meaning. And those are, number one, iconic. These gestures represent a literal object, such as a flat surface or a car weaving through traffic. Number two, metaphoric, gestures that symbolize an abstract concept, like before and after are working together. Three, dietic, that's pointing to things, positioning yourself to people or places or things, like pointing behind the camera or over there. Number four, pragmatic, like offering the floor to someone or don't bother me right now. And finally, beat, the rhythm of gestures alongside the natural stress patterns of speech. All these categories, I'm really self-conscious about all the moves I'm making now ever since I started working on this project. These categories can coexist as well. Often gestures that are performed on beat will fit into another category. There's one more type of gesture that serves a slightly different purpose: emblems. Emblems are named gestures that don't have to occur alongside speech to have meaning, like thumbs up. It has a meaning outside of the context of speech. In a lot of the world, you can flash someone a thumbs up and they'll almost always understand that you're signaling approval or that everything's okay. But if you swap the fingers, it doesn't really have the same meaning. The form of the gesture is tied to the established meaning. It's an emblem, which means it's not universal. The meaning is learned and the context can change it. That thumbs up, in some countries it used to be rude, but because of globalization, that's no longer the common reading there. Although there will be people that do remember its rude history and can still interpret it this way. Emblems can change definition over time. They can be created and they can be forgotten. I would demonstrate that by dabbing, but I don't want a meme of that to haunt me for the rest of my life. So why do we do it? What does gesturing actually accomplish? Well, first, redundancy for decoding and encoding errors. Languages have agreement all over the place. There's redundancy baked into everything. Spoken language is ephemeral. Once something is said, it's gone. Those sound waves have moved on and they are not coming back. Gesture is another form of redundancy. It doesn't matter if a loud drove by at just the wrong time. You might have figured out a vague idea of what was being said. Next, you can show emphasis and importance, or if you're explaining an abstract concept, using metaphoric gestures to visibly explain things can help make it clear, either in your conversation or just in your own head. And sometimes it's so much easier and clearer to get just to the point. Gestures are important to communication. So important that if our hands and arms are unavailable, we will use our heads, our eyes, our other limbs to compensate. Gestures can also show an understanding of social norms. If you're embarrassed to say something, you can make that clear by covering your face or your eyes. Or by doing that move that looks like there are no paper towels or hand dryers in this bathroom, so I guess I'll just shake them. And by the way, the infographics showed it a great video on how you might want to stop using those electric hand dryers. Back to the point. Or if you want to distance yourself from what you're saying, you can use scare quotes or put a boundary around yourself. Gestures also seem to help us get the words out in the first place. That's why people gesture when they're on the phone and why people that have been blind since birth gesture. Gesture is essential to language. It helps us communicate more effectively and more elaborately, and to pass on information and feelings that are difficult to put into words. Gestures are basically emojis for the real world. So, Mom, since I know you will eventually watch this, now after researching for the subject and Working on this 1.5 year long journey, I now understand why you feel the need to put 5 million emojis at the end of your texts. Thank you for watching. This video has been in the works for about 1.5 years, involving the help of my friends. 75 hours worth of voice recordings, some of which were me saying words I didn't even know existed, to develop a deepfake voice of myself saying this exact script in this exact same spot. You can see that version in the link, or whatever I decide to put it. Maybe in the eye, I don't know. I'm going to be editing this thing in a long time away. But wherever it is, feel free to take a look at that version, and see whenever I decide to upload next. Bye. You doing okay, bud?